Welcome back to the channel. I want to show you guys how to make a secondary angle for multicam edit out of a single angle. So we took this interview clip here with this person in our source monitor, our timeline monitor. This is a straight on single camera. And essentially I made a secondary angle here with a close up and zoomed it in and just flopped it, just so there could be some variety between lines instead of having the same camera angle. So let's show you how I did that. We'll go ahead and clear everything off here. So first thing I did was take the original interview here and zoomed it in and flopped it. So essentially I did a flip, zoomed it in a bit, and then kind of positioned it so the headroom was something that would look natural instead of being cut off or anything like that. So that's what I did. And then I made a compound clip so you can make your adjustments here. And then at the top, if you right click your clip, new compound clip, and give it a name. So let's delete that. And that's what this one is, new compound clip. So as you can see, it doesn't have any transform function going on because it's built in. And you can see by the poster in the background that it's flipped around. And this is the opposite angle of what we had over here like that. So then I took that new compound clip and the angle 2. I'm going to go ahead and delete this multicam clip. So I took the angle that I made and the original one, right clicked them both, select them both rather, and then right click and say create new multicam clip using selected clips. You'll get this dialog pop up. It basically takes the name, says multicam. I'm going to say angle sync is the endpoint because they both start at the same frame. And then you have a couple options for move them into another bin and use source audio. So I'm gonna hit create. And now we got a new piece of media right here with these little multicam icon inside of it. So now you can actually manipulate this before you start editing. So I'm gonna right click and say open in timeline. And you can see the timeline's now named what the clip was named. And then here's our two angles. Angle 2 here happens to be the zoomed in, and the top clip on angle 2 track is the regular clip. So I'm going to swap that and move these down. So you can think of this as like a live real-time timeline that you can make sure everything's in sync if you have two different audio configurations per clip. But since we're using one master track, I'm leaving it as a single audio, and angle 2 will now be our close-up. Now, one thing is when you make a multicam clip, the secondary clip isn't going to show you this zoomed in view, and I'll show you what I mean when we get back. So now that I've realigned these two, I'm gonna go ahead and shut off this timeline. And now we have a bare 2398. And to multicam clip it, we're gonna have to drag our multicam clip into the source monitor. So here's our two angles, and this one's actually showing the zoomed in angle, but that's because we're viewing source. As soon as we switch over to multicam and drop that in, you can see, well, it's actually working this time, but in a second it won't. So let's take angle 1 here because we're working off that. So you have to drop a base layer down. So now we have angle 1 with the master audio. Now I'm going to deselect that track selector and lock it. So we have essentially master audio that lines up with this angle. And now if we want to find a spot where there's a break in the dialogue and we wanted to cut to angle 2, let's go ahead and just refresh this. And then now we should be sunk up between the two.
If it was possible.
So if it's not working, and sometimes that happens, I'm gonna go back to offline, back to multicam. Now I can see the two angles. I think that, okay, now it's working. So here's what I mentioned. Angle 2 now looks just like angle 1. But if we drag that down or cut to it, it's actually that zoomed in view. It's just I don't want to say a bug, but how the multicam works, where if angle 2 is actually its own piece of video, it would show you that zoomed in angle. But in this little hack workaround, it actually doesn't. So let's go to this break in the dialogue. So right where he takes a breath here, I'm going to zoom in. We have our video selected. And now I could say, when I hover over the second clip, you can see this razor blade. That'll cut to angle 2. So here we are, cut. I need to choose video only. So now with this little video only, so you have these options down below of whether you want to be cutting video and audio, or just audio. So since I had my audio track locked, it didn't want to cut. Now that I chose video, it cut to angle 2, as we could see down here in the timeline. And now we have that secondary view.
If it was possible to shoot it, we wanted to go.
Now you could also, if you didn't like that, you can hover over your multicam track, hit the option button, and it turns into this little swap logo, and hit swap. And now you can see angle 1 is back and everything's still in sync. I'm going to go back to angle 2. We'll find another break in the program.
Right. We would either go back to that. wasn't right.
So maybe right before he says right, I'm going to switch back to angle 2 here. Cut. So you can either cut it where the playhead is or swap the entire clip or just pick some spots and keep cutting. So it's a pretty cool way to add a little bit of variety without having to go in and flip and zoom and do all that. You can just prep your timeline for a multicam with a secondary angle or even a third if you like. If you can maybe give it just a different zoom or perspective, that might help. And edit it in here, and then you'll have 3 angles to choose from. It's the only problem with this hack is you don't get the zoomed in like poster frame. Other than that, as long as you're the one that created it, you can follow along, and it does show up on the timeline zoomed in like it's supposed to. All right, thanks for watching as always, and I'll talk to you guys on the next video.